I'm Dr. Marcus Lee, a transplant surgeon at the Valley Transplant Center, where I have spent over a decade dedicating my career to the intricate art and science of organ transplantation. The center itself is a beacon of hope for patients facing life-threatening organ failure. Equipped with cutting-edge technology and a multidisciplinary team of specialists who work tirelessly to turn the impossible into reality. Here, every day brings a new challenge, a new story, and a renewed commitment to saving lives. Valley Transplant Center is more than just a hospital wing. It's a sanctuary where medicine blends with human resilience. The facility boasts state-of-the-art surgical suites, advanced immunology labs, and a network of support services that span from preoperative evaluation to long-term follow-up care. We have surgeons, hepatologists, nephrologists, immunologists, psychiatrists, and social workers all collaborating under one roof. This seamless integration allows us to offer patients comprehensive care that addresses not only the physical demands of transplantation, but also the emotional and psychological complexities involved. Over the years, I have witnessed countless transformative surgeries, moments when a failing organ is replaced and a patient is given a second chance at life. The months and years following transplantation are filled with vigilance and care as patients adapt to their new organs and a lifestyle changes required to maintain health. It is a journey shared between patient and provider, one built on trust, communication, and mutual respect. The multidisciplinary nature of our work means that I am constantly learning from my colleagues in other specialties. Their insights enrich my understanding of transplantation's many facets, from immunology to mental health. This collaborative spirit is one of the center's greatest strengths, fostering an environment where questions are welcomed and where we strive together to improve patient care. I often reflect on the privilege of being entrusted with such a critical role. The decision to proceed with transplantation involves careful deliberation, weighing risks and benefits, and considering the patient's quality of life. It is a responsibility that requires not only surgical skill, but also empathy and ethical judgment. In my experience, the most successful outcomes arise when we see our patients as whole individuals rather than just recipients of an organ. Understanding their backgrounds, their support systems, and their aspirations allows us to tailor care in a way that supports their overall well-being. This patient-centered approach is at the heart of what we do at Valley Transplant Center. The stories of those who come through our doors are varied and profound. Some arrive after years of managing chronic conditions. Others unexpectedly face rapid deterioration. Regardless of the path, they all share a common thread: the hope that transplantation will offer them a new lease on life. Each surgery performed here carries with it the combined expertise of a dedicated team committed to excellence. From the anesthesiologists who carefully manage patients' vital signs during the procedure, to the nurses who provide vigilant post-operative care, every member plays a vital role in the success of the transplant. I am continually humbled by the courage of our patients. Their willingness to undergo such a significant intervention, facing uncertainty and the potential for complications, is a testament to their strength. It is this courage that motivates me and my colleagues to push forward, to refine our techniques, and to deepen our understanding. At Valley Transplant Center, we also recognize the importance of ongoing education, not only for our staff, but also for patients and their families. Pre-transplant counseling and post-transplant support groups are integral components of our program, helping patients navigate the emotional and practical challenges they face. The center's commitment to holistic care extends beyond the hospital walls. We collaborate with community organizations and support networks to ensure that patients have access to resources that promote long-term health and quality of life. This continuum of care is essential in supporting patients as they adjust to life after transplantation. The work we do here is demanding, often emotionally taxing, yet profoundly rewarding. Every successful transplant reaffirms the importance of our mission and the impact we can have on individual lives and families. As I continue my work at Valley Transplant Center, I remain dedicated to advancing the field of transplantation, not just through surgical innovation, but through compassionate, patient-centered care. It is this blend of science and humanity that defines my practice and fuels my commitment to each patient who entrusts us with their care. One of the patients who came to Valley Transplant Center left a profound impression on me early in my tenure here. Her name was Sandra Miller, a woman in her late 40s whose journey toward transplantation was as quiet as it was urgent. When I first met Sandra, she was already battling the final stages of liver disease, a relentless condition that had slowly eroded her health and threatened her very life. Sandra's demeanor was strikingly composed, almost serene, despite the severity of her illness. She spoke softly, with a calm that contrasted the turmoil inside her failing body. During our initial consultation, she answered questions with a steady voice, showing neither anger nor despair. Her presence carried a subtle strength, an unspoken resolve that suggested she had come to terms with her situation in a way many patients do not. What stood out to me immediately was not just Sandra's quiet courage, but the network of family that surrounded her. Her husband, children, and siblings were present at nearly every appointment, their faces etched with worry, yet unwavering in support. Watching them interact, I sensed deep bonds forged through years of shared experiences and mutual care. The family's involvement was a reminder that transplantation is never an isolated event. It ripples through the lives of all connected to the patient. Medical evaluations confirmed what we had feared. Sandra's liver function was declining rapidly, and she was an urgent candidate for transplantation. Her lab results painted a grim picture: elevated bilirubin levels, worsening coagulopathy, and signs of portal hypertension. The progression of her disease left little time for hesitation. It was clear that without a new liver, her prognosis was dire. Despite the gravity of her condition, Sandra maintained a quiet dignity throughout the process. She listened attentively as I explained the complexities of liver transplantation, the risks, the waiting period, and the lifelong commitment to immunosuppressive therapy. Her questions were thoughtful but measured, demonstrating a clear understanding of the path ahead. I remember thinking how rare it was to see such clarity amid the emotional upheaval that often accompanies this diagnosis. Sandra's family members also engaged deeply in these discussions. Her husband, a man whose stoic exterior masked a well of emotion, asked about potential complications and the impact on their children. Her eldest daughter, a young woman with a determined gaze, inquired about the lifestyle changes Sandra would face post-surgery. Their involvement underscored the collective nature of coping with chronic illness and the shared hope embedded in transplantation. In the days following our consultation, Sandra underwent a battery of tests to assess her candidacy for surgery. Imaging studies revealed extensive scarring of the liver consistent with cirrhosis, yet her other organs appeared resilient enough to withstand the rigors of transplantation. Cardiopulmonary evaluations showed no contraindications, and her psychosocial assessment indicated a strong support system and mental preparedness, a critical factor in transplant success. Throughout these assessments, Sandra's quiet strength persisted. She never wavered in her resolve, even as fatigue and discomfort took their toll. Her presence in the hospital corridors was often understated, but those who encountered her could sense a profound inner calm. Nurses and staff would later describe her as cooperative and kind, someone who faced adversity with grace. As her medical team, we were mindful of the urgency balanced against the need for thorough preparation. Liver transplantation is not simply about replacing a damaged organ. It requires meticulous coordination, from securing a compatible donor to ensuring the recipient is medically optimized. Every detail mattered, and Sandra's case demanded our full attention. In the weeks that followed, Sandra was placed on the transplant waiting list. This period of anticipation was fraught with uncertainty, a time when hope and anxiety coexisted. The wait for a suitable donor can be unpredictable, and patients often oscillate between moments of optimism and despair. Sandra's family, too, lived in this suspended reality, their schedules and lives revolving around the possibility of a call that could come at any moment. During this waiting period, Sandra's clinical condition required close monitoring. She experienced episodes of ascites, fatigue intensified, and occasional bouts of encephalopathy, signs that her liver was struggling to maintain essential functions. Each symptom was a reminder of the ticking clock, yet Sandra faced these challenges quietly, rarely voicing complaints beyond what was medically necessary. One afternoon, during a routine follow-up, I spent time with Sandra reflecting on her journey so far. She spoke about the changes she had endured, the loss of energy, the altered appetite, the shifting sense of self as illness encroached. Yet, she also expressed gratitude for the care she was receiving and the unwavering support of her family. Her words were tinged with a quiet hope, a belief that transplantation would restore not only her liver, but also her ability to engage fully with life again. It was during these conversations that I began to appreciate the deeper dimensions of transplant medicine. Beyond the technical and clinical aspects, there was a profound human story unfolding, a narrative of resilience, love, and the complex interplay of hope and fear. Sandra's journey was emblematic of the countless patients who entrust us with their lives, each bringing a unique story that shapes their path. Our multidisciplinary team convened regularly to discuss Sandra's case. Hepatologists, transplant coordinators, nurses, social workers, and psychologists all contributed insights to ensure that no aspect of her care was overlooked. These meetings reinforced the importance of a holistic approach, recognizing that transplantation affects every facet of a patient's existence. Sandra's psychological readiness was particularly encouraging. Unlike some patients who face significant emotional distress or denial, she demonstrated acceptance and a thoughtful engagement with the challenges ahead. This mental preparedness is often a predictor of better post-transplant outcomes, as it influences adherence to complex medical regimens and the ability to cope with lifestyle changes. Throughout this period, Sandra's family remained a constant source of strength. They accompanied her to appointments, helped manage medications, and provided emotional support that is essential but often invisible in clinical charts. Their presence underscored the communal nature of healing and the vital role caregivers play in the transplant process. As the weeks turned into months, the urgency of Sandra's situation remained apparent. Her medical status was carefully tracked using standardized scoring systems that prioritize patients on the waiting list. Each change in her condition was meticulously documented, ensuring that when a donor organ became available, she would be ready. When the call finally came, it was a moment charged with emotion. The news that a suitable donor liver had been identified brought relief, mingled with the sobering reality of impending surgery. Sandra and her family faced the decision with the same quiet determination that had guided them throughout her illness. Preparing Sandra for the transplant involved intensive coordination, preoperative assessments, discussions about anesthesia and postoperative care, and ensuring that all logistical elements were aligned. The surgical team, anesthesiologists, and intensive care specialists prepared for the complex procedure ahead. The day of the transplant was a culmination of months of planning and anticipation. Sandra's calm demeanor persisted even as she was wheeled into the operating room, surrounded by a team poised to perform one of the most intricate surgeries in medicine. The atmosphere was one of focused energy, tempered by the awareness of the stakes involved. Reflecting on Sandra's journey from our first meeting to the threshold of surgery, I was struck by the resilience she embodied. Her story was a testament to the profound challenges faced by transplant candidates and the unwavering spirit that sustains them. It reminded me that beyond the science and technology, transplantation is ultimately about people, their lives, their families, and the hope for renewed health. The day of Sandra Miller's liver transplant was one of those moments that crystallizes the essence of what we do at Valley Transplant Center. As the lead surgeon, I stood alongside my team, fully aware of the complexity that lay ahead. Liver transplantation is among the most challenging procedures in medicine, demanding not only surgical precision, but also seamless coordination among every member of the multidisciplinary team. This was a culmination of months of preparation, hope, and meticulous planning. Sandra was brought into the operating room early in the morning, her calm and steady presence carrying through even in this high-stakes environment. The anesthesia team carefully induced sedation, maintaining vigilance over her vital signs as the surgical team prepared to begin. The atmosphere was a blend of intense focus and quiet determination, with each professional aware of their critical role in the process. The donor liver had arrived just hours earlier, preserved under optimal conditions to ensure viability. Our transplant coordinators had worked tirelessly to manage the logistics of organ transport, a process that must be executed flawlessly to maximize the chances of success. It's a race against time. Every moment the organ is outside, the body diminishes its function, so efficiency is paramount. Once Sandra was prepped and draped, the procedure commenced with the careful dissection of scarred and diseased liver tissue. Cirrhosis had left the organ fragile and distorted, a testament to the toll of chronic disease. Removing the damaged liver required skill and precision to avoid injury to surrounding structures, including major blood vessels and bile ducts. As the diseased organ was excised, the team prepared to implant the donor liver, a process that demands meticulous vascular and biliary reconstruction. Connecting the donor liver's blood vessels to Sandra's circulation was a critical step. Any misalignment or tension could lead to thrombosis or bleeding, jeopardizing the graft's survival. The hepatic artery, portal vein, and hepatic veins were anastomosed with painstaking care, ensuring unobstructed blood flow. Once vascular connections were secured, the liver was reperfused, and we watched closely for signs of function, color returning, bile production, and stable hemodynamics. Throughout the surgery, the anesthesiology team monitored Sandra's responses, managing fluid balance, blood loss, and temperature. Transplant surgeries often involve significant blood transfusions, and maintaining hemodynamic stability is a delicate balancing act. Our nursing staff and surgical assistants coordinated instruments and supplies, anticipating each phase of the procedure with practiced precision. After successful vascular connections, attention turned to reconstructing the biliary system, the duct that drains bile from the liver into the intestines. This anastomosis is vital for proper liver function and requires delicate suturing to prevent leaks or strictures. The complexity of this step is magnified by the small size and fragile nature of the ducts involved. With the reconstruction complete, the surgical field was inspected thoroughly for any bleeding or complications. Hemostasis was achieved meticulously, as even minor bleeding can lead to postoperative issues. The abdomen was then closed in layers, and Sandra was transferred to the intensive care unit, ICU, for close monitoring. The immediate postoperative period is critical. In the ICU, Sandra was closely observed by a team of intensivists, nurses, and transplant specialists. We monitored her vital signs, liver function tests, coagulation parameters, and signs of graft function. Early indicators of success include normalization of liver enzymes, stable bile output, and hemodynamic stability. Sandra's initial recovery was promising. Over the first 24 hours, her liver function tests began to improve, and she remained hemodynamically stable without the need for vasopressor support. Her mental status was clear, and she responded appropriately to stimuli. These are encouraging signs after a complex transplant surgery, but the road ahead remained long and cautious. In the days following surgery, Sandra was supported with pain management, nutritional optimization, and respiratory care to prevent complications such as pneumonia or deep vein thrombosis. Early mobilization was encouraged, as physical activity aids recovery and reduces the risk of postoperative complications. Our nursing staff played an essential role in this phase, providing hands-on care and emotional support. Immunosuppressive therapy was initiated to prevent rejection of the new liver. This delicate balance between suppressing the immune system and maintaining sufficient defense against infection is a cornerstone of post-transplant care. Sandra was closely monitored for side effects and adjusted accordingly as her condition evolved. The multidisciplinary transplant team met daily to review Sandra's progress. Hepatologists evaluated her biochemical markers, while pharmacists managed her medication regimen. Dietitians tailored her nutritional plan to support healing, and physical therapists assisted with her gradual return to strength. Psychological support was also offered, recognizing the emotional toll that transplantation can exert. Sandra's family remained a constant presence throughout her recovery. Their relief at seeing her stable was palpable, yet they were also cautious, understanding the potential for setbacks. We encourage their involvement in care discussions and emphasize the importance of adherence to medication and follow-up appointments. During routine rounds, I observed Sandra's improving strength and resilience. She engaged with the care team, asking thoughtful questions about her medications and lifestyle changes. Her demeanor, still calm and composed, reflected a steady determination to reclaim her health. Despite the smooth initial recovery, we remained vigilant for complications common in liver transplant recipients. These include infections, bile duct problems, vascular thrombosis, and rejection episodes. Early detection and intervention are critical to preserving graft function and overall health. Sandra underwent serial imaging studies to assess the anatomy and function of the transplanted liver. Doppler ultrasounds confirmed adequate blood flow through the hepatic vessels, and cholangiograms showed a patent biliary tree. These reassuring findings bolstered our confidence in the surgical success. Throughout her hospital stay, Sandra received comprehensive education on the importance of immunosuppressive therapy, infection prevention, and lifestyle modifications. We emphasize the necessity of lifelong follow-up, as transplantation is not a cure, but a management strategy requiring ongoing vigilance. The hospital team worked seamlessly to provide supportive care, addressing pain control, nutrition, and psychological well-being. Our social workers engaged with Sandra and her family to facilitate discharge planning, ensuring a smooth transition to home care and outpatient follow-up. As Sandra's physical condition improved, conversations shifted toward the challenges ahead. We discussed the need for adherence to complex medication schedules, routine laboratory testing, and monitoring for signs of rejection or infection. These discussions underscore the reality that transplantation, while life-saving, entails a lifelong commitment. The initial success of Sandra's transplant was a testament to the collective effort of the surgical team, intensivists, nurses, pharmacists, therapists, and support staff. Their coordinated care transformed a life-threatening condition into a manageable chronic state, offering Sandra hope and a future. Yet, even in this promising phase, I was mindful of the unpredictable nature of transplantation. Each patient's journey is unique, shaped by an interplay of medical, psychological, and social factors. Our role is to navigate these complexities with expertise and empathy, supporting patients as they adapt to profound change. Sandra's early recovery illuminated the potential of transplantation to restore health and vitality. Her strength and composure throughout reflected the human spirit's resilience in the face of adversity. As I continued to oversee her care, I remained attentive to every detail, aware that success depended on vigilance and a holistic approach. The moments following surgery are often filled with cautious optimism. For Sandra, these days were the beginning of a new chapter, a chance to reclaim her life from the grip of disease. It was a privilege to be part of that transformation, to witness the convergence of science, skill, and humanity in the operating room and beyond. In the weeks following Sandra Miller's liver transplant, the initial wave of relief and optimism gave way to the steady rhythm of recovery and routine follow-up. Her physical healing was progressing well. Laboratory tests showed improving liver function, and her energy levels were gradually returning. Yet, as the surgical scars began to fade, subtle changes in Sandra's demeanor and behavior started to emerge, changes that caught the attention of her family and the care team alike. At first, these shifts were almost imperceptible. During routine outpatient visits, Sandra's responses seemed a touch more guarded, her smiles less frequent. Nurses who had grown accustomed to her quiet kindness noted a slight irritability when conversations veered toward medication schedules or lifestyle recommendations. Her husband mentioned that she appeared more restless at home, sometimes snapping over minor frustrations in a way that was uncharacteristic. These observations were echoed in follow-up appointments. Sandra, once measured and composed, began exhibiting moments of impulsiveness, making abrupt decisions about her daily activities or expressing strong preferences that diverged from her previous habits. Family members described instances where she displayed uncharacteristic impatience or mood swings, leading to tension that was troubling for everyone involved. Given the complexities of transplantation, such behavioral changes can sometimes be attributed to the psychological and physiological upheaval that accompanies major surgery and chronic illness. However, in Sandra's case, the alterations seemed persistent and somewhat puzzling. Early psychological assessments were conducted to explore potential causes, including medication side effects, metabolic imbalances, or underlying mood disorders. The assessments, however, yielded no definitive explanation. Sandra's cognitive function remained intact, and there were no signs of delirium or confusion. Her immunosuppressive regimen was carefully reviewed, with dosages adjusted to minimize neuropsychiatric side effects. Metabolic panels and imaging studies ruled out infections or neurological complications. Despite these efforts, the subtle shifts in mood and behavior continued, prompting a cautious approach centered on careful observation. Sandra herself was often unaware of these changes or reluctant to acknowledge them. In conversations, she maintained a steady exterior, focusing on her physical recovery and the goals she set for rehabilitation. Yet, the growing concerns voiced by her family could not be overlooked. Their descriptions of a new Sandra raised complex questions about the impact of transplantation beyond the physical realm. The transplant team convened to discuss these developments. Psychiatrists and neurologists were consulted to provide expertise on the potential neuropsychiatric effects of transplantation and immunosuppressive therapy. The multidisciplinary nature of our approach was crucial as we sought to understand the interplay between the biological and psychological factors at work. One hypothesis considered was the influence of immunosuppressive medications, particularly corticosteroids and calcineurin inhibitors, known to occasionally cause mood changes and irritability. Adjustments were made to Sandra's medication regimen, balancing the need to prevent rejection with minimizing adverse effects. Careful monitoring followed, but the behavioral shifts persisted in varying degrees. Another avenue explored was the possibility of metabolic encephalopathy, a condition sometimes seen in liver disease patients. However, Sandra's metabolic panels remained stable, and neurological evaluations showed no deficits. Imaging studies, including MRI scans, were unremarkable, further complicating the picture. Throughout this period, Sandra's family became increasingly vocal about their concerns. The woman they had known, patient, thoughtful, steady, was exhibiting traits that felt foreign. Her husband expressed feelings of loss and confusion, struggling to reconcile the woman he loved with the person navigating these new emotional landscapes. Their children, too, were unsettled by the changes, unsure how to support their mother or understand what was happening. These family dynamics added an emotional layer to Sandra's care. We recognize that transplantation affects not only the patient, but also the entire support system. The psychological toll on caregivers is significant, and addressing their needs became an integral part of our approach. Counseling services were offered, creating space for open dialogue and coping strategies. In clinical visits, I took time to listen to Sandra and her family, acknowledging the challenges they faced. It was clear that while the surgery had been a technical success, the journey of recovery was far from straightforward. The emotional and behavioral shifts introduced uncertainties that required empathy and flexibility in care. Sandra's case began to challenge some of the assumptions we held about post-transplant recovery. Typically, improvements in physical health are accompanied by gradual psychological stabilization. Yet, her experience suggested a more complex interplay between the transplanted organ, medications, and the recipient's neuropsychological state. We also consider the role of post-transplant stress and adjustment. The psychological impact of undergoing a life-saving yet invasive procedure, coupled with lifestyle changes and medication regimens, can sometimes manifest as mood disturbances. Supportive counseling and therapy were introduced to help Sandra navigate these adjustments, providing tools to manage stress and emotional fluctuations. Despite these interventions, the gradual emergence of behavioral changes persisted, prompting ongoing vigilance. The transplant team remained engaged, balancing medical management with psychosocial support. Regular multidisciplinary meetings ensured that Sandra's case was continuously reviewed and care plans adapted as new information surfaced. Sandra herself exhibited moments of insight during follow-up visits. She occasionally expressed frustration at feeling different, sensing the concerns of her family and providers, but unable to fully articulate the changes she experienced. This awareness underscored the importance of compassionate communication and patient-centered care. The medical literature offers limited guidance on these types of post-transplant behavioral phenomena, leaving clinicians to navigate uncharted territory. Sandra's case became a catalyst for broader discussions within our center about the need to explore the psychological dimensions of transplantation more deeply. In the meantime, Sandra's family sought to adjust to the evolving dynamics. Their love and commitment remained unwavering, even as they grappled with the complexities of a new normal. They became active participants in her care, attending counseling sessions and educational programs designed to support caregivers. This chapter in Sandra's journey highlighted the fragile balance between medical success and unforeseen psychological effects. It reinforced the reality that transplantation is not merely a surgical event, but a profound transformation that touches every aspect of a patient's life. As I reflected on these developments, I was reminded that medicine is as much about navigating uncertainty as it is about technical mastery. Sandra's experience underscored the need for humility and openness to new understandings, especially when confronted with phenomena that challenge established paradigms. The subtle shifts in Sandra's behavior, though initially perplexing, became a focal point for the team's collective efforts. We approached her care with renewed sensitivity, integrating medical vigilance with psychological support and family engagement. In the weeks that followed, we continued to monitor Sandra closely, aware that her journey would require patience, adaptability, and a commitment to holistic care. The emerging changes were a reminder that transplantation's impact extends beyond the biological, touching the very essence of identity and relationships. Sandra's case was evolving into something more than a clinical challenge. It was becoming a story about the complexities of human experience in the face of transformative medical intervention. It demanded that we, as clinicians, expand our perspective and deepen our empathy. As I saw Sandra and her family navigate these uncharted waters, I felt a profound responsibility to support them, not only as a surgeon, but as a witness to the unfolding human drama. Their trust in our care was a powerful reminder of the delicate interplay between science and the lived realities of those we serve. As Sandra Miller's subtle but persistent behavioral changes deepened, the emotional impact on her family grew more pronounced. The woman they had known for decades, their mother, wife, sister, seemed to be quietly shifting into someone different, and this transformation stirred a complex mix of confusion, grief, and concern within their household. Witnessing this new Sandra, so unlike the composed woman they remembered, left them struggling to reconcile the loving person they knew with the changes unfolding before them. Her husband, a man who had stood steadfastly by Sandra's side through her illness and surgery, found himself wrestling with feelings of loss and helplessness. He described moments when her irritability would flare unexpectedly, fracturing the calm that had once defined their relationship. "It's like she's still there, but not quite the same," he confided during one of our conversations. The depth of his concern was palpable, mingling sorrow with an earnest desire to understand and support her. Their children, too, faced their own challenges. The eldest daughter, who had been a pillar of strength during Sandra's illness, now grappled with the uncertainty of how to interact with a mother who seemed less predictable and more impulsive. Family gatherings, once a source of joy and comfort, became tinged with caution as they navigated these new dynamics. Their confusion was compounded by a sense of guilt, wondering if their reactions might inadvertently contribute to Sandra's distress. This evolving family landscape brought the emotional weight of transplantation into sharp focus. It became clear that while the surgery had restored Sandra's physical health, it had also introduced a profound emotional and psychological upheaval that rippled through those closest to her. The transplantation had saved a life, but also unsettled the delicate fabric of family relationships. As Sandra's physician, I found myself increasingly attuned not only to her medical needs, but to the emotional well-being of her support system. The complexity of their experience highlighted the necessity of addressing transplantation as a holistic journey, one that encompasses physical healing, mental health, and familial adaptation. It was a humbling reminder that the human dimension of medicine often extends beyond the individual patient. In response to these growing concerns, our team initiated conversations with Sandra's family, creating a safe space for them to express their fears, frustrations, and hopes. These dialogues were candid, sometimes difficult, but essential. We acknowledged the emotional toll transplantation can exact on caregivers and loved ones, validating their experiences as an integral part of comprehensive care. Recognizing the strain on the family, we referred them to counseling services specializing in transplant-related psychosocial support. These sessions offered tools for communication, coping strategies for stress, and guidance on navigating the complex emotions that arose. The family's willingness to engage in this process was a testament to their commitment to Sandra's well-being and their own resilience. Within these counseling settings, family members voiced feelings of isolation and exhaustion, emotions often overshadowed by the clinical focus on the patient. Addressing these hidden burdens was crucial, as caregiver burnout can significantly affect both patient outcomes and family dynamics. Supporting the family thus became a cornerstone of our approach. As the transplant surgeon overseeing Sandra's care, I also found myself reflecting deeply on the broader implications of her case. It challenged me to consider transplantation beyond the operating room, to view it as a transformative experience that reshapes identity, relationships, and emotional landscapes. The medical success of the surgery, while vital, was only one part of a much larger story. I recalled conversations with Sandra during follow-up visits, where she occasionally expressed a sense of disconnection or frustration with the changes she was experiencing. These moments underscored the psychological complexity underlying her recovery and the importance of integrating mental health care into transplant protocols. It was clear that physical healing, while necessary, was insufficient on its own. The delicate balance between celebrating surgical success and grappling with unforeseen psychological effects became a recurrent theme among the transplant team. We engaged in multidisciplinary discussions, involving psychiatrists, psychologists, social workers, and nurses, each bringing vital perspectives to understand and support Sandra's evolving needs. One particularly poignant discussion centered on the tension between medical triumph and emotional turmoil. How do we reconcile the joy of extended life with the pain of altered selfhood? How do we support patients and families when the boundaries of identity seem blurred? These questions resonated deeply, shaping our approach to care with humility and sensitivity. In these conversations, I became acutely aware of the limitations of our current understanding. Transplantation is often viewed through the lens of physiology and immunology, but Sandra's case illuminated the necessity of embracing a more holistic model, one that acknowledges the interwoven threads of biology, psychology, and social context. Amid these reflections, the family's enduring love and unwavering support remained a source of strength. Their commitment to Sandra's well-being, despite the challenges, was both inspiring and humbling. It reminded me that transplantation is as much about human connection as it is about surgical technique. In parallel, We worked to equip Sandra and her family with resources to manage the psychosocial complexities ahead. Educational programs were introduced, focusing on the emotional aspects of transplantation, coping mechanisms, and the importance of open communication. These initiatives aim to empower them with knowledge and foster resilience. Throughout this period, I maintained close contact with Sandra, emphasizing a patient-centered approach that honored her experiences and perspectives. Our discussions acknowledged the difficulties she faced, validating her feelings and reinforcing the collaborative nature of her care. This relationship of trust was vital as we navigated uncharted territory together. Sandra's journey during this phase was emblematic of the broader challenges transplantation can pose beyond the immediate medical context. It highlighted the intricate interplay between physical restoration and psychological adaptation, underscoring the need for comprehensive, empathetic care. These experiences also fortified my commitment to advancing transplant medicine with a focus that transcends surgical success alone. It became evident that fostering emotional well-being and supporting families are integral to truly holistic transplantation care. As I observed Sandra and her family confronting these challenges, I was reminded of the profound responsibility we hold as clinicians, not only to heal bodies, but to nurture the complex humanity that defines each patient and their loved ones. Their courage and resilience continue to inspire me, shaping the way I approach every case with empathy, respect, and an openness to the unexpected. As Sandra Miller's personality shifts became increasingly apparent, it was clear that her case challenged the traditional understanding of transplantation outcomes. Her behavioral changes didn't fit neatly into known categories of post-operative complications or medication side effects. This complexity compelled me to engage colleagues from neurology and psychiatry, seeking a multidisciplinary perspective that could shed light on the underlying causes of her transformation. In consultation with neurologists, we explored the possibility that the transplant procedure or immunosuppressive therapy might have subtle neurochemical effects influencing mood and behavior. The brain's intricate networks and delicate balance of neurotransmitters can be vulnerable to systemic changes, especially following major surgery and lifelong medication regimens. Yet, standard neuroimaging and cognitive tests revealed no structural abnormalities or overt neurological disorders in Sandra's case. Psychiatrists brought valuable insights into the psychological and emotional dimensions of transplantation. They considered whether post-operative stress, adjustment disorders, or subclinical mood disturbances could explain some of Sandra's symptoms. Their assessments highlighted the complexity of differentiating between psychological responses to chronic illness and potential biological influences stemming from the transplant itself. This collaborative inquiry led us to contemplate less conventional theories. Could the donor organ, in some way, influence the recipient's behavior? The notion of cellular memory had been proposed in limited contexts, suggesting that transplanted organs might carry aspects of the donor's personality or preferences transmitted through biochemical or neurochemical pathways. While the scientific community remains cautious and evidence-sparse, Sandra's case compelled us to consider such possibilities seriously. We reviewed literature and case studies documenting anecdotal reports of personality changes post-transplant that seemed to align with the donor's characteristics. These reports, though not widely accepted, open a window into a mysterious intersection of biology and identity. The potential mechanisms behind such phenomena remain elusive, but invite exploration into neuroimmune communication, epigenetics, and the gut-liver-brain axis. To deepen our understanding, we expanded Sandra's diagnostic workup. Advanced immunological assays were performed to assess the interplay between her immune system and the transplanted liver. We also evaluated potential shifts in neurotransmitter levels and hormonal profiles that might correlate with behavioral changes. These investigations aim to identify biomarkers or pathways that could elucidate the mind-body connection in transplantation. Throughout this process, Sandra's psychological support continued unabated. Psychotherapy sessions focused on helping her navigate the emotional upheaval and adapt to the evolving sense of self. The Therapeutic Alliance provided a safe space for Sandra to express confusion, frustration, and hope, reinforcing the importance of holistic care. Our multidisciplinary team meetings became forums for open dialogue and hypothesis generation. Each specialty contributed unique perspectives, fostering a culture of curiosity and rigorous inquiry. These discussions underscored the limitations of current medical paradigms and a need for innovative thinking in addressing complex post-transplant phenomena. Sandra's case also sparked ethical reflections within our team. The possibility that transplantation might alter elements of personality or identity raises profound questions about selfhood, autonomy, and consent. How do we counsel patients about such potential risks? What responsibilities do clinicians bear in monitoring and addressing these changes? These considerations prompted us to engage ethicists and patient advocates in our discussions. Parallel to clinical investigations, we began collaborating with neuroscientists and immunologists external to the transplant center. These partnerships aim to design research protocols exploring the biological underpinnings of behavioral changes post-transplant. Sandra's case served as a catalyst for broader scientific inquiry, inspiring studies into neuroimmune interactions and organ-to-brain communication pathways. This growing body of interdisciplinary research holds promise for unraveling the complexities observed in cases like Sandra's. Identifying molecular or cellular mechanisms could lead to targeted interventions, improving patient outcomes and quality of life. Moreover, such knowledge might transform how we approach transplantation, integrating psychological and neurological considerations into standard care. Within the transplant team, these developments fostered a renewed commitment to comprehensive patient care. We recognize that addressing behavioral and psychological changes requires not only medical management, but also empathetic listening and patient empowerment. Sandra's experience highlighted the importance of validating patients' subjective realities alongside objective clinical findings. As we continued to monitor Sandra, adjustments to her treatment plan were made with input from all specialists. Immunosuppressive medications were fine-tuned to minimize neuropsychiatric side effects while maintaining graft protection. Psychotherapeutic support was intensified, and family counseling expanded to help loved ones understand and cope with the evolving situation. Sandra's evolving preferences and habits, though subtle, became a subject of ongoing observation. We documented changes in lifestyle choices, social interactions, and emotional responses, seeking patterns that might link to donor characteristics. This detailed monitoring was conducted with sensitivity and respect for Sandra's autonomy and dignity. Through this journey, I was reminded of the profound mysteries that remain in medicine. The human body and mind are deeply interconnected in ways we are only beginning to grasp. Transplantation, as a life-saving intervention, opens new frontiers not only in surgical innovation, but in understanding the essence of identity and the biological substrates of personality. Sandra's case challenged me professionally and personally. It underscored the need for humility in the face of uncertainty and the importance of multidisciplinary collaboration. It reinforced my belief that medicine must embrace complexity and remain open to novel ideas, all while centering the patient's humanity. As we pressed forward, our team remained steadfast in our dedication to Sandra and others like her. We pursued scientific inquiry alongside compassionate care, hopeful that our efforts would illuminate the enigmatic interplay between transplanted organs and the recipient's mind. Sandra's journey was transforming from a singular clinical case into a beacon guiding new avenues of research and clinical practice. It inspired us to look beyond conventional boundaries, fostering a deeper appreciation for the intricate connections that define health, identity, and healing. During the ongoing evaluation of Sandra Miller's case, an unexpected development emerged that added a new layer to the mystery of her personality changes. Through meticulous review of donor records, Our transplant coordinators uncovered detailed information about the individual whose liver had been transplanted into Sandra. This discovery sparked fresh hypotheses and prompted a deeper exploration of the possible connections between donor characteristics and recipient behavioral shifts. The donor, a man in his mid-30s, had a medical history and personality profile that were notably distinct from Sandra's own. Descriptions from family and friends painted a picture of an outgoing, adventurous individual with a penchant for spontaneity and risk-taking, traits that stood in contrast to Sandra's previously measured and reserved nature. This juxtaposition raised compelling questions about the potential influence of donor traits on recipient behavior. As we examined these parallels, it became apparent that some of Sandra's emerging preferences and habits intriguingly aligned with those attributed to her donor. Family members observed that Sandra had developed a newfound interest in activities she had never pursued before: spontaneous outings, experimenting with bold culinary flavors, and a more assertive communication style. These shifts, subtle yet consistent, resonated with the donor's known characteristics. The medical team approached this revelation with both scientific rigor and cautious curiosity. While anecdotal reports of cellular memory and donor influence exist in transplant literature, they remain controversial and poorly understood. Sandra's case offered a tangible instance warranting thorough investigation, bridging clinical observation with emerging theories about the mind-body connection. We convened interdisciplinary meetings involving transplant surgeons, neurologists, psychiatrists, and bioethicists to discuss the implications of these findings. The conversations were rich with inquiry, ranging from the biological plausibility of such influences to the ethical considerations surrounding patient identity and consent. These discussions underscored the complexity and novelty of the phenomenon. In parallel, Sandra's case inspired us to delve into the scientific underpinnings that might explain how donor traits could manifest in recipients. Hypotheses centered on neurochemical signaling, immune system interactions, and epigenetic modifications transmitted through the transplanted organ. The liver, known for its metabolic and endocrine functions, emerged as a potential mediator of systemic changes affecting brain chemistry and behavior. Our research collaborators in neuroscience and immunology were engaged to design studies that could explore these mechanisms. We aim to investigate whether molecules or cells originating from the donor liver could influence neural pathways or hormonal balances, thereby modulating personality traits. While still speculative, these lines of inquiry opened exciting avenues for understanding transplantation's broader impact. Throughout this exploration, Sandra's psychological and physical care remained paramount. We continued to support her with tailored immunosuppressive therapy, counseling, and close monitoring. The emerging donor-recipient personality parallels added complexity to her experience, prompting sensitive discussions about identity, self-perception, and the evolving sense of self. Sandra and her family participated willingly in these conversations, expressing a mixture of fascination and apprehension. The possibility that aspects of the donor's identity might intertwine with Sandra's own challenged conventional notions of individuality and agency. It also raised profound questions about how patients integrate these changes into their self-concept. Ethical deliberations became an integral part of our approach. We grappled with how to ethically inform patients about potential psychological effects linked to donor characteristics and how to respect their autonomy amid such uncertainties. The need for transparent communication and supportive counseling was emphasized to help patients and families navigate these complex realities. Sandra's case attracted interest beyond our center, prompting collaboration with academic institutions and transplant networks. It became a focal point for case conferences and symposia exploring the intersection of transplantation, neuroscience, and psychology. The dialogue fostered a growing recognition that transplantation medicine must encompass a broader understanding of patient experience. In clinical practice, these insights encouraged us to incorporate more comprehensive psychosocial assessments into transplant protocols. Screening for personality and behavioral changes post-transplant became routine, with mechanisms established for early intervention and support. Sandra's journey thus influenced systemic improvements in patient care. Amid these developments, Sandra herself exhibited an evolving relationship with her identity. She expressed moments of wonder at her shifting preferences, sometimes embracing new activities with enthusiasm, while at other times grappling with feelings of disorientation. Her resilience and openness were inspiring, underscoring the human capacity to adapt amid profound change. Her family adapted alongside her, learning to recognize and respect the nuanced transformation unfolding within her. Their support remained unwavering, anchored in love and a commitment to understanding. Together, they navigated the delicate balance between acceptance and adjustment. As I reflected on Sandra's case, I was struck by the profound questions it raised about the nature of selfhood and the biological underpinnings of personality. The possibility that a transplanted organ could influence behavior challenged traditional boundaries between body and mind, donor and recipient. This case compelled me to consider transplantation not only as a surgical intervention, but as a deeply transformative experience that redefines identity. It highlighted the need for continued research, compassionate clinical care, and ethical vigilance. Sandra's journey illuminated the intricate interplay between biology and psychology, opening new frontiers in transplantation medicine. Her story became a testament to the complexity of human experience and the endless quest to understand the mysteries that connect us all. Sandra Miller's case had evolved from a clinical curiosity into a catalyst for groundbreaking interdisciplinary research, drawing specialists from fields as diverse as transplant surgery, neuroscience, immunology, and psychology. The intriguing possibility that organ transplantation might influence personality and behavior inspired a collaborative effort aimed at unraveling the complex mechanisms at play. Recognizing the need for a comprehensive approach, we established a research consortium comprising transplant centers, neuroscience laboratories, and academic institutions. This initiative sought to investigate the biological pathways through which donor organs could potentially impact the recipient's neuropsychological profile. Sandra's case became a cornerstone example, providing a human narrative that grounded the scientific inquiry in real-world experience. The research teams designed protocols to examine biomarkers associated with immune signaling, neurochemical changes, and epigenetic modifications post-transplantation. Advanced imaging techniques, such as functional MRI and PET scans, were employed to detect subtle alterations in brain activity that might correlate with behavioral shifts. Blood and tissue samples from transplant recipients were analyzed for molecular signatures indicative of organ-brain communication. Parallel to the laboratory investigations, psychologists and psychiatrists conducted longitudinal studies assessing personality traits, mood, and cognitive function in transplant patients. Standardized assessments were refined to capture nuanced changes over time, with attention to factors such as donor-recipient compatibility, immunosuppressive regimens, and psychosocial variables. These studies aim to establish patterns and identify predictors of post-transplant psychological outcomes. Sandra herself participated actively in these research efforts, consenting to extensive evaluations and sharing her experiences candidly. Her willingness to contribute transformed her from a patient into a partner in discovery, underscoring the vital role of patient engagement in advancing medical knowledge. Her journey provided invaluable insights that shaped study designs and interpretative frameworks. The interdisciplinary nature of the research fostered rich dialogues among specialists. Immunologists explored how donor-derived cells and molecules might influence systemic neuroimmune interactions. Neuroscientists examined the potential for transplanted organs to affect neurotransmitter synthesis or hormonal balance. Psychologists considered the interplay between biological processes and the subjective experience of identity transformation. These investigations yielded preliminary findings suggesting that transplanted organs could indeed modulate recipient physiology beyond mere survival of the graft. Alterations in cytokine profiles, hormonal fluctuations, and neural network activity hinted at complex communication pathways linking the organ and brain. While causality remained to be firmly established, the data challenged the traditional separation of organ function from cognitive and emotional domains. The research consortium also prioritized ethical considerations, recognizing the profound implications of their work. Patient autonomy, informed consent, and psychosocial support were integrated into clinical protocols. Educational materials were developed to prepare patients and families for the possibility of psychological changes post-transplant, promoting transparency and shared decision-making. Sandra's case became a featured narrative in academic conferences and professional forums, stimulating discourse across disciplines. Her story humanized the scientific questions, emphasizing the lived realities behind the data. Clinicians reported increased awareness of psychological monitoring in transplant recipients, reflecting a shift toward more holistic care models. In clinical practice, the insights gained from this research translated into tangible improvements. Transplant centers incorporated routine psychological screening into follow-up visits, enabling early detection and intervention for behavioral changes. Multidisciplinary teams expanded to include mental health professionals as integral members of transplant care. Support services for patients and families were enhanced, addressing the emotional and cognitive challenges identified. Sandra's journey inspired the development of patient-centered resources, including counseling programs and peer support groups tailored to the unique experiences of transplant recipients. These initiatives fostered community and resilience, empowering patients to navigate the complexities of their transformed lives. Throughout this process, I witnessed the profound impact of integrating science and compassion. The collaboration among researchers, clinicians, and patients exemplified the best of medical progress, a commitment to understanding not only the biological mechanisms, but also the human stories that define health and healing. Sandra's case underscored the importance of embracing uncertainty and complexity in medicine. It challenged us to expand our frameworks, to consider the mind and body as intertwined rather than separate. This paradigm shift holds promise for improving outcomes and enriching the quality of life for transplant recipients worldwide. As the research consortium continues to explore these frontiers, Sandra's experience remains a guiding light. Her openness and resilience have paved the way for new knowledge and better care, transforming a personal journey into a beacon of hope for many. The lessons learned from her case have reverberated throughout the transplant community, encouraging ongoing inquiry and innovation. They remind us that every patient's story is a vital thread in the tapestry of medical discovery. In embracing the complexities revealed by Sandra's journey, we reaffirm our commitment to holistic, patient-centered transplantation medicine, where science and humanity advance hand in hand toward understanding and healing. Sandra Miller's case profoundly transformed my understanding of transplantation, not just as a surgical intervention, but as a deeply complex, holistic journey that touches every facet of a patient's life. The unfolding narrative of her physical recovery intertwined with psychological and emotional shifts challenged me to rethink how we approach care for transplant recipients. Her experience exposed gaps in our traditional protocols, particularly regarding the psychological dimensions of transplantation. It became evident that to truly support patients like Sandra, we needed to expand our focus beyond the physical and immunological to include mental health as an integral component of post-transplant care. At Valley Transplant Center, this realization sparked systemic changes. We began incorporating comprehensive psychological screening into our transplant evaluation and follow-up processes. Patients were routinely assessed for mood disorders, cognitive changes, and behavioral shifts, allowing us to identify issues early and intervene promptly. This proactive approach aimed to prevent or mitigate the kinds of challenges Sandra faced. recognizing that transplantation affects not only patients but also their families and caregivers. We expanded counseling and support services. We established dedicated psychosocial teams, including psychiatrists, psychologists, social workers, and peer counselors, to provide individualized care plans. These teams worked collaboratively with medical staff to ensure that mental health was addressed with the same rigor and compassion as physical health. Sandra's case also inspired the development of educational programs for patients and families. These initiatives aim to prepare transplant recipients for the full spectrum of potential changes post-surgery, including emotional and behavioral shifts. By fostering awareness and open communication, we sought to empower patients and their loved ones to navigate the complexities of transplantation with greater resilience. On a personal level, overseeing Sandra's care deepened my appreciation for the human dimensions of medicine. I became more attentive to the subtle cues patients present, the quiet frustrations, the unspoken fears, the nuances in behavior that might signal underlying struggles. This heightened sensitivity informed my clinical practice, encouraging a more patient-centered approach. The multidisciplinary collaboration that Sandra's case necessitated became a model for our transplant program. Regular case conferences brought together specialists from surgery, hepatology, psychiatry, neurology, and social work to discuss complex cases, fostering a culture of shared knowledge and holistic care. This integrated approach improved communication and coordination, ultimately enhancing patient outcomes. Sandra herself embodied resilience throughout this journey. Despite the psychological uncertainties and family challenges, she engaged actively in her care, attending counseling sessions and participating in support groups. Her openness to exploring the psychological aspects of her recovery was inspiring and contributed to her ongoing adaptation. Her family, too, grew in understanding and strength, benefiting from the resources and support we provided. Their evolving role as caregivers and advocates highlighted the importance of addressing the broader social context of transplantation. Supporting families became a priority, recognizing their critical contribution to patient well-being. Sandra's case also influenced my advocacy beyond the clinical setting. I began speaking at professional forums and community events about the importance of integrating psychological care into transplantation medicine. Sharing her story helped raise awareness and encouraged other centers to adopt similar holistic practices. Research continued to inform our evolving protocols. Emerging studies on the neuroimmune and psychosocial effects of transplantation reinforced the need for comprehensive care models. Sandra's experience remained a touchstone in these discussions, illustrating the real-world impact of these complex phenomena. As I reflect on the journey, I am struck by how Sandra's case expanded the boundaries of transplantation medicine. It challenged us to embrace uncertainty, to question assumptions, and to prioritize empathy alongside expertise. This transformation has enriched my practice and deepened my commitment to patient-centered care. At Valley Transplant Center, the legacy of Sandra's case endures. Our teams remain dedicated to advancing transplantation not only through surgical innovation, but through compassionate, integrated care that honors the full humanity of each patient. Her story reminds me daily that transplantation is more than an operation. It is a profound life event that reshapes identity, relationships, and hope. It calls on us to listen deeply, to care holistically, and to walk alongside our patients with humility and respect. As I continue to oversee transplant patients, Sandra's journey informs every decision, every conversation, every act of care. Her resilience and the lessons learned from her experience inspire me to strive for excellence that encompasses both science and soul. In this ongoing work, I am grateful for the privilege of bearing witness to the complexities of healing and transformation. Sandra's case stands as a testament to the power of medicine when it embraces the full spectrum of human experience, guiding us toward a future where every patient is seen, heard, and supported in all dimensions of their journey. Years after her liver transplant, Sandra Miller's journey reached a place of remarkable stability and acceptance. The personality shifts that had once unsettled her and her family gradually found a new equilibrium, allowing them to embrace this transformed chapter of life with grace and resilience. Sandra herself became an advocate, using her experience to raise awareness about the complexities of transplantation and the importance of holistic care. Her evolution was a testament to human adaptability, the capacity to integrate change, redefine identity, and find meaning amid uncertainty. Sandra's willingness to share her story publicly brought a powerful voice to the transplant community, illuminating the psychological dimensions often overshadowed by the focus on surgical outcomes. At Valley Transplant Center, her case left an indelible mark. The lessons learned from Sandra's experience reshaped clinical protocols, research priorities, and patient support programs. The center became recognized not only for surgical excellence, but also for pioneering comprehensive care that addresses the full spectrum of transplant recipients' needs. Sandra's advocacy work contributed to a growing movement emphasizing patient-centered transplantation medicine. She collaborated with healthcare professionals to develop educational materials and support networks, helping others navigate the emotional and psychological challenges that can accompany organ transplantation. Her story also influenced the broader transplant community, inspiring discussions at conferences and in academic literature about the mind-body connection and the potential for donor-recipient interactions beyond immunological compatibility. Sandra's case challenged prevailing paradigms and encouraged a more nuanced understanding of identity and selfhood in the context of transplantation. For me personally, Sandra's journey has been a profound teacher. It deepened my appreciation for the complexities inherent in transplantation and reinforced the imperative to approach each patient with empathy, curiosity, and humility. Her resilience and openness continue to inspire my practice and my ongoing commitment to advancing transplantation medicine. The legacy of Sandra Miller is one of transformation, not only of a patient's life, but of the field itself. Her experience underscores the necessity of integrating science, ethics, and humanity in the pursuit of healing. It reminds us that transplantation is not merely a technical feat, but a deeply human endeavor, rich with mystery and meaning. As I continue my work at Valley Transplant Center, I carry Sandra's story with me, a reminder that every patient's journey is unique and that our role extends beyond the operating room to encompass the full tapestry of human experience. Her case stands as a beacon guiding the future of transplantation medicine toward greater compassion, understanding, and holistic care.